Rockin' Stone Miners, I'm your host, Get Good Fox, and this is the Deep Dive and Elite Deep Dive walkthrough guide for the week of April 27th going into May 3rd, 2023. So, I just went through both of the dives yesterday on Thursday, and so I'm going to show you how to overcome them so you have the best chance of beating them on your first try. Remember, if you'd like to see me play live, you can catch me on Thursdays at Get Good Fox on Twitch. First, we're going to do the deep dive, then we'll talk about the elite deep dive, and I'll conclude with my dwarf class recommendations, equipment recommendations, and whatnot. But let's get in there. So our deep dive is going to occur within the salt pits. This is a pretty good biome overall, not a lot going against it. The only annoying thing is that this is where the coronar younglings spawn, those white-shelled roly-poly guys. They're not super deadly, but they are annoying, so keep it in mind. Mission 1 has a difficulty of Hazard 3. You'll be collecting 6 alien eggs. 2 swarms will be generated as you pluck them. You'll also be collecting 150 Morkite. This would be a very straightforward mission if not for the mutator, which is low oxygen. What this means is you've got a 1-minute oxygen tank equipped on your dwarf, and if it runs out, you start rapidly dying. You'll need to recharge your oxygen either at the mule or at any ammo pod that you call in. Even with that, though, it shouldn't be a super hard mission. The main thing that's going to be annoying is that, you're kind of like attached to the mule in some senses. The main thing to do is remember to constantly pull the mule forward with you and try not to fight over what direction the mule should go in. Try to ask before you suddenly call the mule to your location so people don't drown or suffocate, whatever, until they run out of oxygen. Mission 2 raises the difficulty up to Hazard 3.5. Your objectives will be to protect the drill dozer, so it's an escort mission. Expect to refuel 1 time. You'll also need to recover 2 mini mules. They will be located more towards the back half of the cave system, and also you just have to repair them. You don't actually have to do the repair the drop pod procedure, and they will give you gold and nitra for each one you recover, so it's actually a pretty handy bonus objective, even though you do have to do it. There's a mutator in effect, though, which is Mactera Plague. This causes most of the enemies to be Macteras, which could actually be a good thing because the game kind of regards Macteras as a chunky enemy and doesn't generate as many of them, so if you're good at killing Macteras, it will actually make the mission easier, and you'll notice that there's kind of a lack of enemies overall. So in this mission, it's a pretty straightforward escort. The main thing to remember is, just know your basic defensive strategies. When you're actually drilling the heartstone, make sure you have someone who's good at destroying the rocks. If you don't, you'll have to combine your fire. And also have someone who's good at defeating the beamers. A driller can drill down the beamers, or a gunner can shoot the tips off with any one of the main weapons. In fact, the gunner is just really good here. Gunner's great for killing rocks. Gunner is great for destroying the tips of the beamers. If you do bring a driller, bring the cryo cannon so you can freeze the Macteras. Remember, Macteras, once they freeze, they fall down and shatter themselves instantly. And finally, here we are at Mission 3. Difficulty stays at Hazard 3.5. Your objectives will be to salvage 3 mini mules, and yes, you will have to go through the full drop pod recovery process this time. You'll also be collecting 2 alien eggs. One of them will generate a swarm, but you got a nice mutator to help you out. It is rich atmosphere. It's going to increase your movement speed by 50%. Overall, this should feel like a pretty routine Hazard 3 salvage job. It's not too hard. The main thing here is that the terrain isn't too cooperative, but that's not really going to stop you. You'll just have to be expected to do a little more climbing than normal. The main tip here is just remember your standard defensive strategies when you are at the very end of the mission. Call in all of your ammo. There is no mission 4, no need to save your nitro. Try to call in your ammo pods close to the defense objectives. Maybe hold off on one until the fuel cells arrive. Call them close by so you don't have to leave the objective, and just remember your standard defensive tools. You have your shield generators, great for reviving people, great for helping people to reload. If they need to pick up ammo, shield generator gives them cover. If you're an engineer, remember your lures, remember your proximity mines. If you're a scout, remember your pheromone grenades, and if you're playing as a driller, sticky flames, cryo, all of that stuff, great for holding enemies back in a defensive situation, but overall, I don't think you're going to have any any trouble with it. A pretty simple deep dive. Okay, let's go ahead and move on into the Elite Deep Dive, which is going to be in the biome Azure World. Aside from being dark and aside from maybe the plant life obstructing your vision, this is a pretty good biome. There's nothing really super bad about it. Mission 1 is going to be a difficulty of Hazard 4.5. You'll be collecting 7 Quarks and you'll be killing a Dreadnought. It will be the Twins. There's a mutator in effect though, and it is Exploder Infestation. This means that you will be frequently attacked by squads of exploders throughout your entire experience here. And my main tip is to go fast. Fast doesn't mean reckless, it just means stay objective-oriented, get the objectives done, and leave. And once again, to be more specific, what that means is do not fully explore the cave. Find the Quarks, dig up any Nitra that you encounter along the way, kill the boss, and leave. Do not fully explore the cave because it is point extraction, and that means eventually the enemies will become essentially like unlimited in their attack frequency, and you will spend way more ammo killing them than you will save. Unless you're just super fast, you can just like rip through the cave in moments. Also, I do recommend knocking out the boss earlier rather than later. You want to complete these objectives before the point extraction goes on too long. My tips for fighting the Twins, once again, fight them as early as you have a safe amount of ammo, so right off the bat is a pretty good example, and also try to damage them evenly because the way their healing mechanic works is the Twin who has lower health will heal up to catch up to the Twin with more health, so if their health is about equal, then when they do heal, it'll barely affect them at all. Also, remember, Exploder Infestation, they will continue to attack you even during the boss. So on to Mission 2, difficulty goes up to Hazard 5. Objectives are to collect 4 alien eggs. 1 will create a swarm. You're also needing to get a black box. This is a deep dive exclusive objective, and it's basically the same thing as repairing that sort of satellite radar uplink at the end of a salvage job. You just got to build it up, it deploys, and you got to stay within the green energy field until it captures. Same thing. There's also a mutator. Now, there's 2 mutators in effect here, and that's the real big catch of this mission 1. Shield disruption. So no more shielding for all of Mission 2, but in return you take 30% less damage from any kind of a hostile source. So that includes all enemies, as well as hostile, terrain things like a lightning crystal or the poison gas from a mushroom. There's nothing like that, though, in the Azure World, just enemies, so don't worry about that. The other mutator is Volatile Guts. This causes most enemies to self-destruct when they die. Little tiny baby enemies won't do it, though. And the thing about this is that it is good because it will blow up other bugs in a chain reaction, but they can also hurt the dwarves. So in addition to not having shields and not wanting to take damage, you definitely super extra don't want to let the enemies get close because they could bite you, do, like semi-permanent damage, and they could then blow up and do more damage. So it could go poorly if you let them get close. My main tip here is to stay together. The main weakness for your plan in Mission 2 is just kind of doing some lone wolf stuff. Somebody goes off on their own, doesn't tell you what's going on, and then they get ambushed, they die, and then you got to go over and revive them. Maybe you don't all go as a group. Maybe one of you goes out to revive, the other 2 stay where they are. A swarm attacks while you're not ready and you're divided. It's just stay together. Don't lone wolf it. If you do that, if you stay together, if you rally up during swarms, if you stay relatively close to one another, you'll actually find this mission shouldn't be that big of a deal, especially if you are using traversal tools so that the entire group can move around like a zip line. Everyone can use a zip line. Drilling a tunnel, everyone can use a tunnel. Using the platforms, everyone can jump up the platforms. Do stuff that everyone can use to travel around the cave and come together during swarms, and you should find it's not too bad. My main reminder here will be remember your defensive strategies. It'll help you during swarms and during the black box. So in the black box, remember, call your ammo if you're going to use it near the black box so that you can capture and reload at the same time. If you're a gunner, remember your shields. Shields allow you to easily revive people. Shields on the ammo pod mean people can easily reload ammo without being attacked. You could just use the shields to hold the enemies back to buy more time to capture. It's an amazing ability, especially when not taking damage is an extremely high premium. If you are an engineer, you got turrets, lures, you got landmines. If you're a scout, you got pheromone grenades. If you're a driller, you've got the cryo cannon or sticky flames, all kinds of great weapons to crowd control the enemies. Do that, stay together, let people know if you're gonna go wander off. And you should find that this isn't really that big of a deal. And here we are at the final mission. Difficulty is Hazard 5.5, but hey, you get your shields back, which is nice, right? Objectives are to refine liquid morkite, so it is on-site refinement. You'll also be collecting 2 alien eggs. Expect 1 swarm. So that's it. Must be easy, right? No big deal? Well, there's one thing they don't tell you, and what they don't tell you is that the cave that you're in is not very pretty. I would describe it as a series of pits, pillars, and ledges, and the refinery lands halfway onto a small ledge, so it's sort of half embedded into the wall, partially on the ledge, and then the other half is just kind of like leaning off into a pit. It's really, really ugly terrain, and something that's really gonna slow you down is trying to build all the pipes if you did not bring either a driller or get the Rocky Mountain beer, which will allow you to remove the earth in a single pick strike. This is a problem because the slower you go, the more swarms you get, and the more swarms you get, the more likely you are to get a really ugly swarm. In fact, I almost blew it during this mission when a nasty Glyphid grunt swarm attacked with just all of the slashers and all of the grunt guards. It was very, very close. Another thing that's a big problem is there isn't really an obvious place to fight the enemies. There isn't a nice wide open area where you can just have these clean fields of fire. I actually had to build my own battlefield out of platforms because I was playing as an engineer, and it was just a good enough solution. It wasn't great, but it worked. So my main tips here is you have got to spend some time making the cave safer. As soon as you get in, whatever ability you have to help other people traverse the terrain, best if you are a gunner, fire one of those zip lines up to the refinery. Remember, you don't have a mule, so in order to bring any of the resources back, you need to get back up onto the refinery on the ledge. So, spend some time making the cave safer. Now, on the good news, there is a lot of nitro, especially in the form of loot bugs. The bad news is that you'll have to travel back to the refinery. Other tips for making the cave safer would be if you see 2 pillars that are kind of close to one another and you're an engineer, just build some platforms and link them together with like a sort of Plascrete walkway, and then see if you can like build kind of a staircase up to the refinery itself. Yet another way to get in there, because you've got to have room to move around. And I did encounter a good amount of exploders. They might blow up the terrain. They might blow up your platform. So every now and then check to see if it has become more dangerous and refill any of the gaps that have been created. It's very important that you come together for swarm defense because, once again, there's not a lot of great areas to fight in, so make sure you come together. If you can't find a safe place to fight, you might have to build a safe place to fight. But the biggest tip of all is I would recommend either having a driller so that you can easily build tunnels to get the pipes to the pump jacks, or drink that beer, the Rocky Mountain. Remember, you can recycle your beer by constantly disbanding your party, even if you are solo, until the Rocky Mountain appears. That would help quite a bit because digging through the rocks manually is gonna slow you down a lot. Alrighty, then let's wrap things up with my conclusions, where I give you my MVP Dwarf characters for the Deep Dive and the Elite Deep Dive. Starting with the Deep Dive, Gunner and Scout. The main thing here is you need quality of life, because the missions aren't that difficult. There aren't any bosses to take out or anything like that, so you just want to like do things to get resources more efficiently. The Gunner is great because he's just gonna body the escort. The Gunner just rips apart the rocks, can destroy the beamers by using his main weapon on the tips of the beamers. You've got the awesome zipline. The zipline is great in the first one of the Deep Dive because you kind of need to stay together a little bit to breathe the oxygen. Zipline is a tool that everyone can take, everyone can use it, and the zip lines are going to be great in the third part of the deep dive, where the terrain is a little bit uncooperative. Once again, everyone can use zip lines. It's going to be great. Now, Scout, on the other hand, he's really good in a situation with the low oxygen because you could just kind of go around and grab an objective, and if you're running low on oxygen, the Scout is so fast, he's the one that can make it back to an ammo pod or make it back to the mule so that you can refill your oxygen. Bring the cryo grenades, because you do have the whole Mactera plague. Just throw a cryo grenade, freeze a Mactera, bam, it's dead. It's very satisfying too. And in the third mission, once again, the Scout is going to be very capable of finding all of those mini mules, scanning them, getting the legs, repairing them. It's going to be great. Very good quality of life there. Now, for the Elite Deep Dive, I actually have two sets I want to recommend. Gunner Driller, or if you get the Rocky Mountain Brew, a beer that lets you pick through the earth with a single stroke, then I'll recommend Gunner Engineer. So either way you want Gunner. Why? You just want the super crazy defensive capabilities he has combined with the zipline launcher. The zipline is what's going to keep people together because everyone can use it, and it's super, super good for getting both the Quarks and navigating the third Elite Deep Dive mission, which just has super ugly terrain. The other thing he has is a gun that doesn't have to reload too much and the shield that holds enemies back. You'll just be able to hose the enemies down. You've got a black box to defend, and in the third Elite Deep Dive, you don't have a lot of terrain to move in, so having a guy who could just hold the ground down and just hold the bugs back, that could be absolutely like the game changer on its own. So definitely want to Gunner. Now, you also could take the Driller. You mainly want the Driller in order to get through the third Elite Deep Dive a bit better because he can just drill straight through the earth, and then you can make a straight tunnel, a channel in through the dirt so that you can plug in the pipes in a straight line to the pump jacks and complete the mission quickly. You don't want to invite too many enemy waves in. Now, you can, in addition to that, you can support your allies by having the cryo cannon. The cryo cannon is great. You know, there aren't really much in the way of bosses to fight. The cryo cannon, even if you're not personally killing the enemies, just freezing them all is such a big help to your allies. They will obliterate those frozen guys. Like, that gunner is going to just own all of the frozen enemies. Like, it's not even going to be a thing. Just be careful you don't freeze your allies. Now, if you do have the Rocky Mountain beer, I do recommend the Engineer because the Engineer is such a compliment to the Gunner. You get the double turrets, you get the lures, you get the mines, just absolutely insane defense. It just allows you to just draw a line in the dirt and say, not 1 foot closer, bugs. He's just going to be great. He's going to be a great support in everything because, you know, you can fire up a zip line and then he can shoot a platform underneath it so that you can mine better. You've got the black box, going to be great on defense there. And during the Morkite refinement, you're kind of stuck in the same area, so the turret's once again going to be a great help. Overall, it's going to be great. And also the pipes can be placed on your platform, so you might be able to finagle some pipe shenanigans with your platforms, but I still recommend going in with the Rocky Mountain Brew in that particular situation. Anyways, those are my tips for overcoming this week's Deep Dive and Elite Deep Dive. Remember, this guide will be useful between the days of April 27th to May 3rd till the next Deep Dive comes on in the following week. And of course, remember that you can catch me live on Twitch at GetGoodFox, where I do tackle the Deep Dive blind, so I have no idea what's happening. Come back next Friday, though, on my YouTube channel for another Deep Dive and Elite Deep Dive walkthrough guide. Till next time, though, like this video if it was entertaining, subscribe for future Deep Rock Galactic content, and of course, at the end of the day, remember that you don't have to be good to get good.